I'm Dr. G, and for the past 10 years of my life, I've been passionate about all things holistic healing. I've been committed to healing myself and others from the inside out by incorporating some of the most effective modalities for healing the mental, the emotional, and the physical. I've learned that they give us the opportunity to be our most authentic and powerful selves. Heal Thyself is a show dedicated to just that. Today's show is going to be incredible, and I say it every week. Of course I do, because it is incredible. Knowledge bombs of digestible information to empower and create clarity on what the highest version of us looks like. Product reviews to provide informed consent so you can buy the safest and best products out there. Better than the first two that I spoke about, and you're getting other B vitamins, which are energizing, right? Get off of it, throw it away. And special guest segments with some of the brightest and most elite minds in their field.
So what is that like on my nervous system? 6 hours of holding that emotion.
Here's the earth. Here's the mechanisms and mechanics of an earth when it breathes. We would think much different about that asthma patient that shows up.
All to create change in all the parts that make you, you, so we can start healing ourselves and each other. As always, thank you for taking the time out of your day and joining. And as always, thank you for taking this information that has empowered you, telling your loved ones, and making massive shifts in the world, right? It's knowledge that you're taking, giving it to others. You have a hand in all of this massive shift in consciousness and in health as much as I do. So thank yourself. All right, today's show, very special one. How many of you out there journal? How many of you out there have ever heard me talk about that as part of my rituals? And how many of you out there have found that journaling has been integral to your healing? And it's a big part of your success, mental, emotional, even physical. So we're going to talk a little bit about journaling, what it is, how to do it, and if there's science behind it. And it's going to be really interesting because when you think about it, it's really cheap to get a journal. Time-wise, you don't spend too much time. You could sit there, write 15 minutes, and then call it a journaling day. But the benefits and the effects are so powerful. So I'm going to get into that. And we have a special guest. Kim Konte is the founder of Non-Toxic Neighborhoods, and it is the most amazing nonprofit initiative that I've seen, because what they're doing is empowering people to make changes in their communities when it comes to the quality of the grass and the lawns that people are being exposed to. Now, you heard me talk about that before with pets, and you heard me talk about that with kids and how it affects us as adults too. Everyone is affected by pesticides in the grass, communities, health, hormonal dysfunction, cancer, all these things. So we have the leading voice on there to teach you if you find that the playground, the local park, the patch of grass that everyone goes to around town is sprayed with pesticides and doused with pesticides, then you can make a change at removing it. So she's going to give you some instructions how. And also we're going to talk about how amazing they are because they've made massive shifts already. The City of Irvine, California does not use synthetic pesticides on any of their grass because of this nonprofit. So stay tuned. Now, before we jump into our knowledge bomb, I want a quick word from our sponsors. Before we get into our show, let me tell you a little bit about my favorite enzymes, pancreatic enzymes out there. It is the Masszymes by Biooptimizers. It's the enzymes that provides optimal digestive and gut health. I mentioned before, a few times on the show, how when I'm in a stressful flight or fight state, one of the first things to go is my appetite. And then when I start eating, it's like my body is rejecting food because I'm so stressed. And I was always a kid who had a nervous gut and it would manifest. That's where the stress would be. I noticed that when I do eat in that stressful state, which inevitably happens just because we're Americans and we go through life, I get bloated. And bloating is something that on and off I've been dealing with for quite a while. And what's really helped over the years has been using pancreatic enzymes. The reason why I'm in such high support of Biooptimizers is because the Masszymes are one of the ones that have been really, really helpful for me. So pancreatic enzymes are produced by the pancreas and they help with digestion. So whether it be age related, as we get older, we reduce those pancreatic enzymes. But guess what really plugs up our pancreatic enzymes? Stress. And so many of us, we've done shows on stress. I've talked about stress ad nauseum. We've done it for so long. Stress is such a killer to our digestive health. And we know this, right? Because a lot of us are in sympathetic all the time rather than that parasympathetic rest and digest. And it doesn't matter the type of meal that you're eating. It could be super healthy or super unhealthy. Still, your body is having trouble when you're in a stress state. So the awesome thing about Mass Enzymes by Biooptimizers, it's a high quality enzyme supplement, and it's a best in class, and it's loaded, and it's full spectrum. That's what we want. We want to make sure if we're having digestive enzymes, we're not getting the poor quality ones that are just breaking down one class of macronutrient. But this one is breaking down protein, starches, sugars, fibers, and fats. So the way that I do it is before breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I have 3 capsules, and it's been really helpful, especially when I'm in a stress state. Anytime I'm flying, anytime I'm going somewhere else on vacation, and I know I'm going to be having hearty meals and really indulging, I always bring pancreatic enzymes, and my choice has been the Mass Enzymes by Biooptimizers. So check it out, try it for 1 month to 2 months, see if you notice, especially when you're stressed and you're eating, that your bloating goes down, right? And you feel like you're digesting your food better. Your energy is going up. You can notice these things because now you're assimilating the food much better because it's breaking down efficiently. So if you want to try my favorite pancreatic enzymes, the Mass Enzymes by Biooptimizers, Heal Thyself listeners, you got the hookup, as always. www.masszymes.com. That's masszymes.com/DRG. And when you check out, use the code DRG10, you're going to get a 10% discount. All right, Knowledge Bomb segment, journaling. How many of you journal out there? Look, back in 2016, I had a friend who really put me on to journaling. And it was part of her ritual every morning, right? I'd call up and she wouldn't pick up the phone and she'd be like, hey, I was journaling. I was like, oh, you were journaling? Well, what do you journal about? Because for me, the way I thought about journaling was 13 years old, keeping a diary about the girl that you like or the boy that you like, right? But I didn't know that journaling actually had some therapeutic effects. So she actually prompted me to start looking into the science behind it. And in many ways, I wish that I started it earlier, because it's so powerful when it comes to your mental health. And of course, we all know at this point in the show, mental health is intimately tied to the physical health. So journaling in itself being so cheap, right? Time-wise and cost-wise, financial, we think about the benefits of it and they're massive. So for me, what I found is when I started really putting myself into a journaling practice every single day without fail, I wrote every single day in a journal. I don't know if I missed maybe 4 or 5 days, but I got pretty much every single day of the year. And man, the breakthroughs that came on paper, I would actually write it. I'd wake up right in the morning. I'd immediately start writing. Whatever's coming out, my subconscious is coming out. And then I'd close it. And then I'd read it. I'd read it the next morning. And it'd be interesting when I'd read it, I'd see how I would process my own emotions. I would see what things are affecting me. And then here's the magic of it. At some point, I started seeing the pattern. I started seeing, okay, I think I wrote about this a month ago. Hold on, let me go back. And then I see it and I go, wow, this is just a version of the same thing I'm experiencing now. Hold on, let me go back. Oh, wow, this happened again. And then you start seeing the patterns of how the universe or your human experience is calling forth things to show you where you need to heal. And when you see that pattern, that's the next level. That's when you're able to see, wow, I'm responsible for so much of this, and I can change my perspective and stop attracting these situations. And it's incredible because I did. And every year, right the day before New Year's Eve, I would read the whole year's worth of journal entries. And then I always write a summary at the end of the very things that have been weighing on me, or the themes that came out in the journal, and also the accomplishments of what I've realized through journaling and how I want to show up for the new year. It's an awesome practice. I would highly suggest that you all do it. So what about the research? So there's a study that I always refer to for people who are starting to journal. And what we have is 2 groups of people who are in psychological distress or manifesting psychological symptoms. In one group is the journaling group, and the other group is the drawing group. Now, all they really measured was 2 15-minute sessions 2 times a week. And the results were really interesting. It indicated that the participants who were in the journaling group, not the drawing one, had a significantly greater decrease in their psychological symptoms than those who were in the drawing group or the control group. And what were the symptoms? Depression, anxiety, hostility, right? So for me, it's if someone is feeling any of these symptoms, right? To me, that we diagnose symptoms very readily. But if someone's feeling these symptoms of depression, anxiety, potent anger, or hostility, then why wouldn't one of the first recommendations by us in the medical field be, okay, I see it fit to give you this medication. Okay, whether or not the medication is given, but why? Why are we not recommending something as simple as journaling or possibly in substitution? Now that's up to the doctor, but still, why aren't we doing more journaling or expressive writing? Well, what's the point of journaling, right? Why do we do it? Well, here you have a chance to express your emotions and thoughts and put them on paper, right? You're starting and beginning to name those very emotions. And then, as I mentioned before, you start connecting them and seeing the patterns. You start experiencing revelations the more consistent you are with your journaling. Now, in terms of a traumatic event, whatever it is, right? It could be something really traumatic like a death of a loved one, or it can be someone who got you really amped up at work. But in terms of a traumatic event, you can write it out. And what you're doing is you're helping organize it so the brain now is becoming satisfied, right? You're writing out your emotions and addressing those intrusive thoughts, the ones that are coming in and you're like, why did they do that? Why did they say that? Why did I show up like this? I should have done this. Why did they do that, right? And those avoidant thoughts where you just don't want to look at it. You don't want to see it. I don't even want to deal with it. I don't want to talk about it. But in the terms of the traumatic event, whatever it is, right? And that's up to you. Whatever really bothers you, whatever holds on to you negatively, that's a traumatic event. So it allows you to reflect on them and then hopefully ask at some point, why did this affect me so deeply? And you can explore that and you can go deep into these parts of us that really need that love. And for a lot of us, especially the men out there who are in our masculine, man, we love logic and we love order, but this is the perfect place to do it, right? We can write logically how we feel, right? Even logically, it's interesting because in many ways that's a contradiction, right? Logically how you feel. But for us men, putting it on paper gives us a sense, or for people in their masculine, give us a sense of really order. And that's something that, I know a lot of men who are putting into practice journaling, and they feel so good about it because all of these emotions that they're avoiding and they're not talking about for one reason or another, many societal ones, for all those reasons that they're avoiding looking at their emotions or speaking about the emotions, now they have a place. They have a place. And even if you can't afford a therapy, then here's a place where you can write. And by writing, you're putting those emotions in there, and then you're allowing self-reflection on top of that. You can actually refer back to February 1st, right? Or January 3rd and go, whoa, this keeps happening. And you're helping release the brain's incessant propensity to be on a loop and try to integrate and then loop some more. And that's leading to anxiety and depression, the very things that the study I just mentioned helps with, right? But also you're opening up your memory, right? All of those resources that are trying to integrate, especially holding on to the trauma, and the brain is looping in there and trying to integrate. Well, now when you put it on paper, you're releasing that. And now you're opening space for other brain functions like your memory. So it's awesome because it's really simplifying the brain's thoughts and putting it on paper. And the journal can be such a healthy tool that we can interact with for anything that affects us negatively. So here's what I love about journaling. You're bringing more mindfulness and awareness to yourself. What are your triggers? Why are they your triggers? Right? And what you're doing is creating more self-awareness. And what that's doing is creating more choice, because now you're creating the choice to take a different route in the presence of a trigger, really something that's affecting you, or any adversity. And that's super, super empowering, where you can have a practice of daily journaling. You can calm down your nervous system, and you're going to increase your communication, right? You've made those connections now, and you can speak in your truth in a loving way because you've seen on paper through time what your patterns are that are coming up in a journal. Remember, in a disagreement, no one's going to read your mind. But if you don't know what's in yours, and you've never put names into those emotions or revealed the why behind them, well, you're just as in the dark as the disagreeer. So now you're in a state of egoic reaction. And in reaction mode, no understanding is ever reached, right? The ego believes it won, but no compassionate understanding is ever reached. So how incredible is it that something like daily writing, expressive writing, can offer you this gift to understand your triggers and your patterns, and you can show up better for everyone you have in your life or just meeting for the first time. That's super powerful. So I recommend everyone, if you don't have a journal or you never journaled, go online right now, type in daily journal. You don't need any calendar. You don't need any prompts. You just need a blank, really a journal that resonates with you design-wise, and buy it. Get it to your house. Wake up in the morning, the day you get it, the next morning, wake up. Have your journal by you. I have it right on my side table with a pen. As soon as you open your eyes and you're still kind of in that lucid waking up state, say thank you. And then grab the journal, open it up, and start writing, whatever it is. It can be your opinion on the weather, but whatever it is, let yourself flow. Let your emotions flow. Let your subconscious flow. Put it on paper. Write it out. Take at least 1 to 2 pages. I do 2 pages every single morning. Right? But it helps me. Maybe for you it's 1. But write it out, close it up, go, I let it out. Whatever's there is there. And then whenever you have the chance, it could be later in the day, the next morning, take time to read what you wrote, right? With compassion, no judgment, not, why did I say that? Why did I overreact with that? Oh man, that really did a number on me. Why did I write that out? Do not put on those lenses and see your journal for what it is. See the compassion that you can write with a compassionate lens you're writing. And then you're able to do it every day. Do it every single day. Create that as part of your ritual. It only realistically, takes 10 minutes max. And everyone can squiggle in 10 minutes into their day. I mean, we scroll through Instagram for 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, all the way up to hours. So if we can integrate in those 10 minutes and look at and read and start seeing the patterns, try it after 4 weeks. Look back and see if you're manifesting the same reactions and you're writing about the same stuff, because you'll notice if you're writing about the same stuff, that's something that you have now the possibility to look at from a bird's eye view and go, okay, this is a pattern and it's not serving me anymore and I'm going to change it. All right, that is the power of journaling. I am so excited to get to our guest interview. So let's dive in with Kim Konte from Non-Toxic Neighborhoods and learn about how we're going to empower our communities and create healthier lawns for ourselves, our children, our pets. All right, everyone. Today's special guest, Kim Konte, is the founder of Non-Toxic Neighborhoods. If you don't know what it is, you're about to find out. This is a very, very important nonprofit that is happening here in America. And I'm going to find out, and we're all going to find out just what they're doing and how powerful this movement is. I've been such a fan already. Thank you, and welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. As we were talking about off air, I started following the Non-Toxic Neighborhoods page a while ago, right around Zach Bush when he was here. I for some reason, I wasn't seeing all of the posts, so I subscribed to it to make sure that I was seeing it. But it's such fantastic work for those of us that don't know, but it's really just a movement that is changing the neighborhoods to a chemical-free, non-toxic neighborhood. Aside, like the name. What got you into this, and how would you describe this nonprofit in your words?
Sure. So I think just being a mom, we were lucky enough to call Bermuda home. And when we lived in Bermuda, the country that is not progressive by any means banned Roundup because of its negative health impacts, the potential negative health impacts. So when we had to leave Bermuda and we're moving to California, we just assumed that California, everybody ate organic and surfed and, that was the kind of lifestyle. So when we moved to Irvine, we found out my son's elementary school was using Roundup to show the children where to run in a circle in the turf. And that was my kind of aha moment into the space. My background is in advertising and branding. Very different. Guinness beer, just totally different. I never thought I would be a soil nerd.
Which may have glyphosate in itself in there, right?
Yes, that's really wine too. So I stick to organic tequila. And this job will make you drink a lot. Right. So you have to teach me how to cleanse my liver. But with this work, it was, we just realized that we wanted to protect our kids and our pets from this pesticide. And the more we looked into the active ingredient and the copious amounts of areas where it's used. I mean, we really had no idea, because I think people are trusting. So they trust if a school is utilizing something or a city is utilizing something in the parks where the kids are playing, that clearly it's been proven safe to do so. And in 2016, we worked with the City of Irvine to adopt organic and regenerative management. And since then, they have organically maintained all pest pressure. So from weeds to rodents to insects, there's a lot of trial and error. So the goal with non-toxic neighborhoods is really to make it simple for anybody to take this on. So we have a toolkit and a team that will take you through the entire process.
Wow. Okay, so let's backtrack. I remember in 2016, before I even followed, I was reading right around then, maybe 2017, I read the article about Irvine, because I had just moved to California at that time, and I'm living in the Bay Area, and I was like, damn, I need to move to Irvine, because I remember reading that article. But that's powerful, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, banned pesticides in the city of Irvine?
So the City of Irvine organically controls all pest pressure. So that just means that they don't utilize any synthetic pesticides, insecticides. We're using goats, and we just actually, we had a conference call on the way down here that we're going to be utilizing holistic plant grazing to remediate the soil and remove toxins in the soil.
Wow. So how many people have approached you in the environmental medicine workspace and said, this is our case study of how to do it with the rest of the country? Have you gotten those inquiries already, or local authorities or mayors? Or I would expect that this caused some buzz early on.
It's definitely picked up. I think there's kind of pre-COVID and post-COVID, and COVID has really kind of highlighted the importance of our green space, and that, you know, our green space must be free of these endocrine and carcinogenic pesticides, especially because they're being utilized for cosmetic purposes.
Yeah.
Like, how did that even happen, right? I hope one day we get to a point, when you hear about when planes used to have a smoking section and announcement, I hope we get to the point where, like, they used Roundup in your parks. But,
right.
You know, here in Santa Monica, we have a lot of work to do. You know, they're still utilizing 2,4-D in the parks where the kids are playing. And that's 50% of what makes up Agent Orange.
Wow.
You know, and that's just simply to control broadleaf weed pressure on the turf.
I don't think a lot of parents out there are aware that a lot of their playgrounds or school grounds are covered in these pesticides. I talked a little bit to you before. I did a show talking about pets and children and how they track these lawn chemicals in. I also talked about what the lawn chemicals do to pets and children's health. And I was pretty shocked to see that, like, this is significantly elevating the risk of certain cancers. And we see, like, childhood leukemias on the rise. And I wondered to myself how much of that is tied up into all of this. Because when a child comes into the oncologist, I guarantee you it's not part of the questionnaire. How often does your child play in a playground? Tell me about your schools or your city's grounds. Would you say that most of the country, these playgrounds are covered in this stuff?
Yes. And unfortunately now it's the norm, you know, and when we found out, you know, my oldest was in 3rd grade, and I felt as a parent that I failed. So when I found out every time they played baseball, even when we lived in Bermuda, before they had banned it, every time they practiced, every time they had games, they were potentially getting exposed to these known carcinogens. And that's where I just wanted to find a way to make sure that parents were given that choice. Pet parents too. I mean, look how pets and children interact with their environment in such a similar way, hand to mouth. You know, you always see dogs eating grass, right? We don't, in Santa Monica, that's not safe because we know that the pesticides that they're using. But with all of this, I think, you know, our advisors have been critical. And what I love about your work and your messaging is a lot of what our OG advisor, Bruce Lanphier, says is that, you know, we're a broken system because most of the funding goes to research and not prevention. You know, and so many of these things are preventable, but since our regulatory system is so broken and, clearly I feel favors industry over public health and safety, we just have to stay so vigilant. And like we were talking outside, it's the synergistic impacts, it's the accumulative impacts. So again, we started out with pesticides, and now we've helped over 200 cities, counties, and school districts switch to organic regenerative management, which is great. And with our partnership with Stonyfield Organic, they helped us show proof of concept outside of California. So we showed it in Miami, we showed it in New York, we're showing it in Philly. So it's just something that needs to become the norm, but we're really far away from that right now.
But the proof of concept is major, because now other cities are going, wait a minute, I'm paying attention to that. And I've seen it happen in Miami. I get these updates or the Instagram stories, and I repost them because I'm like, for me, that's a major win. Every single time it's in a major city where people can look around and go, whoa, wait, Miami's doing it. New York's like, well, why can't we do it? Right. And I understand. And again, to the viewers and listeners, there's no reason to feel like you failed as a pet mom or as a mom or a dad or pet dad, whatever it is. But now the question is like, how do we make those changes? And non-toxic neighborhoods is a way to look. So let's say I'm a parent listening to this and I live in central New Jersey, and I'm wondering, wait a minute, I bring my dog to the park every day, and I also bring my kid to the park every day, and they're running around, rolling around, playing Frisbee, and my dog is catching the Frisbee. First of all, is there a way to find out, are there any telltale signs that I can tell that the parks or the grounds are sprayed? Anything I can visually do? And then if I really feel fired up about it, how do I make a change in my town?
That's the simple part. So we were lucky enough to get the support from Jane Goodall, which I'm like a huge fan of hers. I got to drink whiskey with her.
Wow.
I've never been so hungover in my life. But
Jane Goodall, and she is expert when it comes to, what was it, with animals too?
So with her, it started with chimpanzees.
With chimpanzees.
Right.
So that was the beautiful video from like the 70s of the chimpanzee. They're letting it out into nature, and turns around and gives her a big hug and then runs out.
So sweet.
Yes.
Yeah. And she did so much work back then when, obviously females had a big role in that place. But she realized that she started out with a focus around chimpanzees, but unless she could help the village and the community, then she couldn't help the chimpanzee, so it broadened, and she was just extremely supportive of our work and wanted to get the word out. So that's how we came about creating the toolkit, is that we wanted anybody to have all of the tools they needed to just begin the dialogue. And to your point, the first thing that we always recommend to do is, if it's with your school district or your city or your county, is to request a Public Records Act request. So it's simply just you submit a request for all of the pesticides used the year prior. So then what we do is we focus on the solution. So we're not blaming the Parks Department. We're not blaming superintendents for using these products before, because again, they've all been marketed to us as safe. And
right, they don't know better.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So they're also just trying to do their job. They're constantly getting fed the propaganda from industry that these pesticides are tools, right? And protect your toolbox. But what our focus is just to share the other tools, bring it back to goats for targeted grazing and cattle. We're using cattle to not only remediate soil, but we're using cattle for wildfire mitigation, which is so critically needed. We have to kind of go back to what we did before we became colonized. So many of the answers are there. So we have kind of like really old school approaches to this, but then we also have technology. We have solar powered weeding robots that just self-dock, report weed pressure. And the thing is, all of these options are so cool, you kind of forget they're also organic and good for the environment.
Oh, that's amazing. It sounds like straight out of organic sci-fi movie. But is it true that all grass that's treated looks like the White House grass, or is some can like chemically treated grass also have like spots of dirt and discolorations, or is that like a rule of thumb that we can look at?
So I think the biggest benefit of showing proof of concept and working with transitioning synthetically maintained parks and baseball fields is to show the benefits, even when you go organic by neglect. And that's sometimes what we're forced to do as school districts because they have really low budgets, is once you break the system of having your turf dependent on synthetic fertilizer to get nutrients because you've killed the soil with all of the herbicide use, pre-emergence, post-emergence, non-selectives kill everything. That would be a Roundup, 2,4-D, what Santa Monica's using, and we're hopefully working to get them to stop. It works in the turf. So they're actually applying this pesticide to the turf to control broadleaf weed pressure.
Wow. And it's just, so to think that, like, yesterday I was doing a workout in one of the parks here in Santa Monica, Clover Park, and I was barefoot, and I was like, all right. It was funny because I was taking off my shoes, and I was like, okay, wait a minute.
Did you see any clover in Clover Park?
No, I didn't.
That's
actually.
a problem.
That's true, actually. Although there was like some
interesting.
brown patches and dirt patches, I was like, well, it doesn't look like White House grass, but it's crazy because we have picnics on this grass, right? We have children rolling around, laying. We sunbathe in the grass. Right, our dogs roll around, rub their snout on the grass. There's a story that I tell that I'm actually still worried that so we had a bulldog, a family bulldog. His name was Champ, and we lived, when my dad moved to this retirement community, it was really well kept. I'm talking about like really well kept. I would walk around. I'm like, why do I always miss the landscapers, first of all? And second of all, like, why does everything look, do they do it in the middle of the night? But every time you'd go on a walk, his snout would be really red. His jowls on his face would be red. His paws would be red. And he was like really white, like sort of even borderline albino. And I'm looking and I was like, something is in this grass. And this is years ago before I knew any of this. And he ended up actually dying a few years later after moving there. And I have this like really strong suspicion that a lot of it had to do with what was in that retirement community grass. And a lot of people who are listening, they live on golf courses. They live in retirement communities. They go visit their parents. They live in retirement. They're walking around with their dogs. Are these places really notorious for spraying?
Yes. And we worked with Laguna Woods, which is a retirement community, and it was the meetings were amazing, and usually the retired folks would have more dogs in the meeting in their wheelchairs
Right.
than the actual people that we were working with. But they worked to get Roundup banned and work towards organic management. And then Lois and Dr. Rudy got Women of the Year in Orange County for 2019 for their work in this space. So it was beautiful to see. And it was, to your point back, how can you see when they use Roundup or a non-selective? It's like an orange chemical burn, and it's not just in the retirement homes. Unfortunately, it's always used in roadside vegetation management. So the amount of glyphosate that's ending up in our watershed and in our soil is catastrophic. And working with San Diego County, we're thinking we have a positive impact. We work to have all the 400 parks in San Diego ban glyphosate and work towards organic management. We learned from the county that 98% of their total Roundup glyphosate use is utilized in roadside vegetation management, and that's ending up in our water.
Whoa. That's so powerful to even hear.
It's scary.
Right, because we're avoiding it, let's say, and we're doing everything to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, but then we drink our water, right? And unless
It's in
you have
our
really
rain.
It's in the rain. So what is roadside vegetation management for those who don't know?
I know, it sounds pretty boring. So anybody driving down the highway, I don't know if you've gotten caught behind the actual trucks that are spraying. So they'll mow the parkways and the medians. So it's high frequency mowing, and then they go and broadcast apply Roundup and glyphosate. And then it's just a dead, just really sad environment full of garbage, where we learned that that's really depressing and that's bad news. But the good news is that switching to pollinator roadside vegetation management, it's 30% cheaper off the top, and you bring down your greenhouse gases. Everybody's pretending to care about climate change.
Right.
But if they're serious about it, then they have to move to these actions that are cost effective and are a solution. So not only are you supporting more natives in your environment for your region, but you're supporting the pollinators. And then what we found in Florida, DOT reported that the farmers had increases of their yields because they have additional pollinators pollinating their crops.
Which is the opposite of what Bayer says, right? Monsanto Bayer, it's the opposite. You get more yield with this, use more Roundup.
Right.
And so that's pretty ironic that's seen. But back to the roadside vegetation. So you're saying it's mowed, it's sprayed, and then it's leaking into the watershed?
Yes.
And it's getting into our water.
Correct.
Wow.
But this is national. Like, this is something that's happening on every single road, county road, state roads. So we're working, because it's something that's more positive because it's a solution. Like, it's cost beneficial. It benefits the farmers who, sometimes think that our work is against supporting them, but we're trying to help them from policy, from the Farm Bill, to increasing their yields and making sure that they have the tools. So if we're saying, please stop using these pesticides that will harm you, that aren't improving your crops. We can't play pesticide whack-a-mole anymore. Roundup alone, we don't focus so much on the negative health impacts because it has its own issues. It's not an effective tool because it's creating herbicide resistance. It has a 22-year half-life in the soil.
Wow.
And now it's making the pesticides that farmers are now kind of getting stuck into using look like organic apple juice, right?
Yeah.
So we need to get off this, pesticide hamster wheel of sadness that's only benefiting, Bayer Crop Sciences and Dow and those folks.
Wow. To go back to the part where if someone realizes that their home organization is using these chemicals, and you say that it's usually like a bright orange chemical burn that we can look for, rather than like a dull yellow dirty
right.
one.
So our organic vinegar-based, acidic-based pesticides that we recommend, they have to be OMRI listed and Washington State Department of Ag certified. The greenwashing out there is honestly out of control. We've had a site in Houston where this company tried to literally sabotage one of our pilot transitions. And thankfully it was a high profile site. So there was cameras. And I was joking. I was telling the team, okay, let's go to the cameras and see who did this. And they're like, okay. I was like, what do you mean, okay? They're like, no, we totally have cameras everywhere. So someone had gone in and sprayed Roundup all over this formal Bermuda lawn at Centennial Park. And it was because we would utilize a product that says organic on the product, but in fact is not organic at all. So we're not working to do this to create a healthier environment, only just to, again, play pesticide whack-a-mole.
Wow. So that company was not happy about it? Is that so they use Roundup on it?
So,
It's crazy. It's crazy. What's out there is crazy. That's a crazy response. But So for the people who want to make a change, you're saying that we can first start looking at the pesticide records.
Pesticide usage report.
Where do they get that?
So the easiest way to find it, because every school district and city have very interesting websites. So just Google city name and public records, and it will literally take you directly to what you need to fill out. And then you just simply formally request all of the pesticides used for the previous calendar year. So then the team could then provide, once it takes 10 business days, and then we provide all of the solutions from, like with rodenticides, we have ways to sterilize the rodents without having a negative impact on the wildlife. And again, the technology is amazing what we have access to now.
So I fill out that record or the request for it. I have all the public records in my hand, right? It's like an email or like.
So it's just simply an email.
Okay, so I have the email. Then I would send it to non-toxic neighborhoods.
No.
Okay.
To the city. So
sent to the
yeah,
city.
So it would be for Santa Monica. You would Google City of Santa Monica public records, and then there'll be a link where you submit it right there. And that's all you simply ask is, the list of complete pesticides utilized in the previous calendar year.
So then I would then have an insight if pesticides are being used in my favorite park that I'm going to do my jog in
Clover
the morning.
Park. It's
Right,
free of
Clover
clover.
Park. So then how do I start making a change in my town? Is there a way that I can do something?
Yes. So we again get you all of the tools, and you've had our advisor Zach Bush on before, and our advisors are great because they don't only help where we currently have chapters. Anywhere we have anybody working on this, they will work to get a peer to testify or to have a meeting with an elected official or participate in a meeting, because not everybody, until this became an issue, I didn't know that our elected officials were just as accessible as they are. That you can have a conversation with them and share your concerns. And it's such a positive platform that, elected officials that don't necessarily have a very strong environmental background, they see the benefits. From a liability standpoint, it increases property value. A lot of cities now are celebrating by putting up organically maintained park signage to educate
Oh, that's
celebrate,
amazing.
that's a park where you can play in the dirt and roll around in the grass.
That's amazing. That's one of my dreams, is that before you enter the park, there's a giant sign that says we are blank blank certified. No need to worry. Have fun.
Take off your shoes.
Take off your shoes. Like
Run in the grass.
If every park in the country would be like that, this would be a much, much healthier population. Children, dogs, adults, grandparents, everyone. Because we're all affected by this. And
also your neighbor, though.
Yeah.
We got a really powerful email last night from a mom who shared that she just lost her 4-year-old daughter to NHL, and it was
non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
And it was just such a powerful email, and that's why this work is pretty heavy. But she wants to now help everyone else kind of, how do I have that conversation with my neighbor? It turns out that their neighbor was using every type of Roundup variant they could get access to, and they, the little girl would play in their yard because they had a dog, and it's just, and children react. With your background, children detox in different ways, and some children are unable to detox in a fast enough way, and in Orange, California, we had this little girl showing developmental delays, and her pediatrician ordered lab work, which unfortunately is not covered yet. That's one thing I asked Zach. We need to work on getting Great Plains lab work covered by insurance, because
I would love that.
People would then just really connect the dots between where they play and all of these different exposure points are accumulating in their systems. And they're like, so Lily was 3 years old, and she got the lab work back, and she was at the 95th percentile of glyphosate, the active ingredient Roundup, and off the charts in 2,4-D in her little system. So that also helps our Parks Department understand that the purchase orders that they, sign off on have an impact.
Massive impact. And that is where my passion for vitamin medicine came, is when I saw that the cancer patients that were coming in, no one was testing their chemical exposure, their chemical burden, right? Whether it's workplace, whether it's throughout life. And I was testing them, and I was like, this is a major commonality. Every single cancer patient that I was getting into my office had, let's say I did the Great Plains lab, the urine test, would have at least half of the chemicals on that result report over 90 percentile. So whether they have detoxification issues or whether they're just readily exposed, it's a major, major part of that cancer. And to think, children, they pound for pound eat more food than we do as adults. And if it's really crappy food, they're exposed to food pesticides, right? No filtered water, whatever's in the water. And then they're going out to school and then coming back and playing at home. From morning to night, they're being exposed to pesticides. And we know pesticides are intimately tied to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, leukemia, and other cancers for children. So why isn't this, aside from right now what we're talking about with COVID, why isn't this public enemy number one? Why aren't we talking about this? Because for me, it is massive when it comes to the health of our country. And that's why I'm such a fan of the work that you guys are doing, because you're taking a major chunk of the exposure out slowly but surely.
But you can help us get the word out, because I feel like our team, we focus so much on the work.
Right.
But we also need to get the story out, because then people can see that's something that they could do. We want to empower anyone to do it, because it's all you have to do is follow through, and then you'll be successful. And if Palm Beach can maintain their aesthetics to what they need it to be organically, which they've done beautifully, including their golf course, then anyone could do it. And granted, they have higher budget. So then working with North Miami that has no money, they've done it too. It's because they just made the commitment. But when you were talking about, children kind of going through their day and all of the different exposure points, that's where we learned that pesticides is just one piece of the puzzle. So we have all of the support in that space, but then we expanded it to synthetic turf, because the same families, communities, pet owners that worked on the pesticide issue would then reach out regarding synthetic turf.
Right.
Asphalt plants hidden in nature preserves. That's one that's happening. And, in the city of Irvine, which I was really proud, and I was proud to live in, we discovered this asphalt plant hidden in a nature preserve that is the largest polluter of hexavalent chromium and all of the known carcinogens in the city of Irvine. And we just discovered last week that it's the largest polluter of known carcinogens in the county for all of the group 1s.
Whoa. And that hexavalent chromium gets in the water. And that is, I believe, if I check last, connected to breast cancer. But it's connected to, I think it was thyroid and breast. But I might be wrong on that one. But I haven't. But regardless, crazy. Because it's just, people are trusting, and that's, I think, a positive trait. But at the same time, until our regulatory system is fixed, we have to stay vigilant. We can't assume that you're moving into a neighborhood and home that's safe for your children. You have to do your research. I miss this. Our kids have now been exposed. We think, oh, great, there's an organic policy since 2016, and the entire time that they've been breathing these toxins. And when our advisors found out about it, they were brilliant. They circled the wagons immediately and helped us, get experts to get baseline sampling when the regulatory body failed to. Learning how corrupt regulatory bodies are. There's loopholes. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a plant like that on a nature preserve.
0.5 miles away from homes and open-air schools.
Exactly. And literally polluting the whole town. That wouldn't exist if our regulatory bodies were doing their job, or there wasn't so many loopholes. So, and you mentioned about astroturf. A lot of these, especially in California, there's so many places or yards that don't have grass, so they use astroturf. Is there a problem with that?
Yes. So a lot of the focus was around the infill, because it's chrome rubber, which is hazardous. It's broken down tire, and all of it's again, group 1 carcinogen. But it's actually the blades of grass have lead in them, right? And we know there's no safe level for children for lead exposure, and it breaks down. And you're also losing the opportunity to have your kids play in soil, play in dirt. It's toxic. It's just another disconnect between nature and we're just getting removed from our natural environment so much that it's just one more piece of the puzzle. But we were able to get a moratorium for synthetic turf in cities now, just by sharing, the negative health impacts. But it's like you go down the pesticide avenue to switch to organic regenerative management, and then it's all of these other issues. So our focus now is to work on children's environmental bill of rights. So we've been asked to be a part of the United Nations North American committee for that. And we just can't afford any more legislation that gets washed down and doesn't have teeth. We need legislation that can allow finally protection for children over protecting industry. Industries can still thrive without just harming our environments and natural resources, and as a result, our children.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love the work just the education aspect, but then the work part of it is so powerful. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the word out. That's why we're talking here, to get the word out that, just because, and I felt for many years that if it's a park here, it's got to be safe, The EPA did its job. My town did its job. Absolutely not true. The EPA has many loopholes. The FDA has many loopholes. This we know. I've highlighted it many times on this show. And it's something that really important that you highlight is that the Parks Authority, the superintendents in school, they don't know, and they're sold this propaganda that isn't true. And then we're suffering. So the work that is being done, the education and the legislation and the massive shifts, slowly but surely, are really powerful. Are there any big plans that are coming out for non-toxic neighborhoods coming soon?
Yes. Well, it's the Children's Environmental Bill of Rights. We've created ordinances and, again, support to help you have that conversation with your elected official and then to get it brought forward. And we're approaching it from the state level to the grassroots level and anywhere in between. And it's something that we need because it's what's in your drink, it's what's in your food, it's what's in your soil, but it's just too much. Like it's the chemical load on our children, just sperm count alone with what's happening with the pesticide exposure. Eventually we want our children, to have the ability to have a family.
Right.
And right now we're at this crisis moment, and
It's
Zach
threatened.
always says we're facing this sixth extinction, and it's like people aren't acting fast enough. We've seen we've been asked to be on these committees for climate action plans, and they're not enough. They're not even factoring in how the city's maintaining the land. We can't afford any more of this greenwashing. There's so many solutions out there, but you need to show up to the city council meetings. You need to have that conversation with your Roundup living neighbor and just kind of work to make your environment as healthy as possible.
Yeah. My dream is to have a community of where I live, my neighbor, my neighbor's neighbor, my right side, left side, all of us are the same conscious awareness. And we're building to keep a better community, town,
Can you
city.
create that? No.
Yeah.
We're doing it one city at a time, but I think, also our focus is we're working with Brightview, which is, they're a national landscaper and probably one of the largest pesticide usage companies out there, but it's positive. It's telling that now they are looking into this. I don't know if it's because they sleep better at night or because
Right.
it's a benefit from a business model standpoint.
Right. They may see everyone like being more conscious and maybe organic is trending, So
Right.
that's why I always say Coca-Cola will be right behind us if organic is trending. And it is. So all of a sudden they're making organic waters and
Organic
they're buying out companies
Gatorade.
that are buying. Okay.
Yeah.
It's where the money is. They don't care.
Right.
My last question. How do people find out if they can use lawn chemicals that are healthier? Like, is there, you mentioned vinegar base. Is there brands that you really like out there where people can go, yeah, well, now I can't use Roundup. What do I use?
Right. So for home use, it's really kind of rethinking your yard. One of our partners, Perfect Earth, they're based in New York, their focus is making sure there's at least 2/3 for the birds, pollinators, and it's kind of looking at your space. Do you really need that much turf? Does your dog need that much grass, or do you want pollinator garden with bringing life back into your space and having more butterflies and birds and insects? Ants provide free aeration to your soil. They're not the enemy. When you drive by those homes that have their entire house tarped for termites, it's heartbreaking. It's like, do you think those chemicals are magically going to just not impact your bed and your air vents and your utensils? It's horrible. So I think it's just utilizing just organic, natural products. We don't use any pesticides at our house. We do have landscapers, and we're trying to also bring back landscapers to have a role that is you're a doctor. Everybody looks up to you, right? Our landscapers don't get looked up to, right? And the work that they do and the environments they keep is important. So we're trying to bring it from landscaping to land care and making that connection. And also with COVID, people are home on Zoom, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, like, who's outside in my lawn and what's in the backpack and what are they spraying? And people are finally making that connection. Love
that. Thank you for that answer. Where can people find you or Non-Toxic Neighborhoods?
You can find us, nontoxicneighborhoods.org. You can email hugo@nontoxicneighborhoods.org or Kim, and also on Instagram. I think that is where we really try and share positive stories and answer questions and just really support anyone. We're in New Zealand and Australia. We're even in Malta now.
Love that.
So it's just getting people what they need to make the transition. And at least that's one piece that we can have a positive impact. And we have all of the solutions. And we'll also work to get products donated, because we're basically the free new business department for lots of organic companies.
Yeah.
So we have no problem asking them to make donations.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your work. I love bringing people in here who are inspiring and doing their place to change the world. And what you're doing is right up my alley, so I'm in full support and any way I can help. But thank you for joining the show and empowering us all out there. I know people who are listening and they go, I didn't even know that. I didn't even think about that. Wow, now I have a resource. Now I have some guidance and I'm going to make a change. You've empowered many people just by talking. So thank you, Kim, for joining the show.
Thank you, Doctor.
What a fantastic interview with Kim Konte. I told you, when it comes to pesticides on our lawn, it's a big problem. And for me, it's one of the big public health issues that we're not even looking at yet. But now you have the ability, from listening, to make a change in your neighborhood. You're getting ahead of it before it becomes a real problem in public health. Years from now, you have the opportunity to make the change, and that's amazing and so empowering. Thank you all for coming, rating, reviewing, subscribing. If you have not yet, I urge you, please support the show by doing any or all. Highly appreciated. And I'll see you next week. Much love to you this week and your highest selves.